Today on the podcast, I welcome my grad school classmate, Kristen Wilcox. In the last 8 years, Kristen has led 9 student groups across the globe. It has been a blast to follow her journeys from the sidelines. She has learned so much about the rewards and challenges of adventuring with students, and I'm so glad she's here to share that knowledge with us. This is Cindy Ingram, and welcome to the Art Class Curator podcast, where we're taking art out of the dark with thoughtful explorations and in-depth interviews designed to ignite curiosity and delight in art classrooms everywhere. I am so excited to welcome Kristen Wilcox to the podcast. Welcome, Kristen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So Kristen and I went to grad school together many years ago, 15 years ago. I have really enjoyed watching your journey from grad school to now and watching especially your experiences with travel. So that's why I wanted to have Kristen on the podcast to share with us all of her tips on traveling. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do, where you teach, that sort of thing, or what you teach.
Okay. I'm Kristen Wilcox, and I teach many different levels of art classes at a high school called Samuel Clemens High School in Schertz, Texas. It's a suburb of San Antonio, all the way from like a drawing 1 class all the way up to an IB class, IB art. And so it's just really fun. I love to travel, and it's been nice to bring my passion to the schools and try to inspire kids to travel. So that has ended up being kind of like a big thing I do. And it started about 8 years ago that I took my first trip with kids.
Okay, so why do you think it's important for an art teacher or any educator to travel?
Context. We read things in books, we listen to people talk, we might see video clips and stuff like that, but there is nothing that compares to being at the place, imagining what it was like in the past, putting all those little facts that you know together. When you're really there, even when you think you know so much about something, you go and it's presented to you in a way that there's so many aha moments that you just can't get from, looking at a reproduction in a book or even seeing it in a museum out of its context sometimes.
Yeah.
In the place, I learned so much. I just get a bigger picture every time I do it. And then that makes all the other art even better because now I'm adding more context to other things.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because I even think in my head before I go to someplace, I'm like, am I really going to enjoy this? Because I feel like I already know it so well.
Yes.
And when I get there, I'm like, I was crazy. Of course, it's so different.
It's so different, like seeing it in person and then seeing how even like maybe a curator presents it. And that's for the museum stuff. That doesn't count for any monuments or architecture or public art installations, whether they're, 100 years old or they're just something that's real recent. Like having that context of seeing it in real life changes everything.
Yeah. I love what you said about imagining yourself in the footsteps of the people from the past, because that's what I love about, going to Italy and ancient Rome. You're just walking around and you're like the same ground that ancient Romans walked on, and it's crazy to think.
It is fascinating,
Yeah.
And then we live in such a rich visual culture that thanks to all the movies and TV shows and stuff like that, they've really been able to help our imagination with that too. But, so you see a movie and you might see the Colosseum or something on it and you think, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. And then you go, and then not only are you thinking about the people that were there a long time ago, you're also just thinking about how they just filmed that movie that you may have watched that you really enjoyed. And then it just puts layers on layers on layers.
Yes, it's so wonderful. So you do tours with your students and you also do adult tours. I want to ask you questions about both, but let's start with, what are some steps for someone who wants to get a program going with their school? What are some steps they can take to make this a reality?
Okay. The first one is being excited and feeling like you really want to do this, because a lot of people think it's really easy, and it's not at all to pull together a group and feel like you have group cohesion and that people feel safe. And that's a big issue. So depending on your school, there are some schools out there that are completely on board and they have a culture already built in where travel is, part of their school culture. It's more difficult at my school. My school district is worried about liability issues. And so there were some different challenges. So of course you have to approach your administrators and make sure that they know, what you're doing and that they feel good about what you're doing. So the way that my school district does it here is that I've been given permission to put up posters, and I can advertise when I'm having meetings about the trips, but they have to be off campus. I'm not allowed to hand out any flyers or like specific information about the trip other than like the general, hey, we're going to this place and these are, this is the expected time and here's my contact info kind of stuff. And so, it's a struggle to reach kids. They, to try to get them excited. So a lot of it is word of mouth, building excitement, letting people know that you do travel, and then really letting them know that it's, like you're not just going to see art, like you're going to live amongst wherever you're going, that you get to see the culture and that all the similarities and all the differences, and it, it just makes the world bigger. So there's you have to be excited.
I like what you said because, I led my first group this last summer. It was a lifelong dream of mine to do that because I went on a trip like we're talking about with one of my high school teachers.
I remember you telling me that a long time ago and being like,
it changed my life. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this when I grow up. I'm going to take groups of people around the world. And it was actually exactly 20 years from my trip that I did my first one. So it was a 20-year anniversary of that trip this year, which means I'm a lot older than I want to be. Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know where I was going to go with that, but it's just really exciting. And I think building that excitement is so key. And when I started my first tour this last year, the people at Go Ahead Tours told me that, the first one is always the hardest because people have never seen you do it before. And so they are just kind of going in blind. So did you find that to be true? Like after the first one, it became a little bit easier, or is it still hard to recruit every time?
It's still hard. And this is why. There are people that are better at selling. And I want to take everybody traveling with me because I think it's important and I think it's life-changing. And I think it's going to make the world a better place. And there's just so many reasons. But I also understand that it's expensive. And something really interesting, though, that I've noticed is that it's often the families and the kids who you least think can afford it, that maybe their parents recognize that it's a big opportunity and they make it happen. So I don't think it's easy. It's never easy for me. Every year I daydream about traveling and I actually really like traveling with students. They're different than adults. They have more of an open mind and they get excited like me about like the little stupid things. And so it's just really, it's easy obviously for me to be around high school kids and I like talking to them and stuff like that. But I hate selling. I hate selling so much. And and really, even though I'm excited, there's that, competition with kids wanting to get their first car, or they're worried about saving for college, or they want the newest and latest, greatest iPhone. And if they haven't traveled, they don't know how amazing it is. It's always incredible to me that I end up taking kids who have never been on an airplane, like never, ever been on an airplane. And I don't know why that seems incredible to me, but it does. And so it's super exciting. I'm like, well, here we go. We're about to take 4 flights over this 2 weeks, maybe more, And so getting them excited and letting them know that they can do it and that it is worth the money and that if they really want to go, that they can find a way and I'll help them. And letting them know that there are people who want to have them go on this trip, that they need to share their excitement and that people will find ways to help these kids go. And then we even talk about like, they're going to go on an amazing trip and they're going to be able to use this. This is very on a job application, in a job interview for the rest of their life, and I give them examples of tell me sometime that you overcame a difficulty and, you have the only child who's like, oh my God, I had to room with these 3 crazy people I didn't know. And then they end up becoming best friends. So I talk about job interviews, college essays, all that kind of stuff about you're going to talk about this for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, because I still tell the story about how I fell asleep on a train in Paris in college and I ended up like an hour north of Paris. When did you overcome obstacles? I'm like, I am stuck in a foreign country. I don't know where I'm at. And, I don't have a ticket, nor do I have any money and, on me at the time. And it was, I love that you have stories forever that happened, I don't know how many years ago, 18.
And you know what? You survived. You figured out how to get wherever you needed to go. You woke up and you had to figure it out. And look at you now. You're still here.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's, and then the other thing that I really impress on my groups is that you have to be flexible, that we have this idea of what our trip is going to be like and what we're going to see. And then the things you think are amazing are just kind of meh. And then there's that one thing that it never even occurred to you, that moment or moments or that thing that is just so incredibly imprinted on your mind forever. And so we talk about, yes, there might be some big train strike and we don't get to take the train. And so we're forced to fly to the next destination and we're all disappointed because we were excited about the overnight train. And then yet there's some other amazing thing that we got to stay in town late one night in Paris because there was a big, huge street party that we wouldn't have been able to see if we had left on the train as we were supposed to. Yeah. So, we talk about flexibility and going with the flow. And I do find that the kids are maybe a little bit better than that, than the adults.
I can see that. Yeah. I could definitely see that. Cause I have an idea of what I want to do. And when I get there, when we went this last summer, the day we were in Paris that we could do museums, the Louvre was closed.
Oh.
They're closed on Tuesdays. And then our free day was a Tuesday. And I was like, oh, what are we going to do instead? And then I went to that cemetery, that big cemetery in Paris, and I loved it. And I've already been to the Louvre. And I was like, you know what? This was better because I've never been here before. And I got to see some cool stuff. And then we got to eat pastries while watching a World Cup game, and then France ended up winning a week later. And it was just it was exciting. And I think opening yourself up to that, I think that's such a good life lesson.
It's yes. That's when I say travel changes you. You don't even know how. You don't even know going in. And if we can give these, adults too, everybody can change their mind, but I just think about how much it changes perspective, worldview, what you want to be when you grow up, all of those things, because these kids are challenged and, they're taken away from what they really know and they're put in a new situation with new people and maybe they don't know the language and they get to see how much we're all alike, but they also discover strengths that they didn't know they have.
Yeah.
And I love it because every one of us, even me still traveling, every time I travel, I have those moments look at me, I just navigated this new airport or I figured out how to buy a metro ticket. I know how to be safe or the kids present me with some new challenge that I've never done. And I think you can't have that kind of growing when you stay in the place where life is normal.
Yeah.
In your everyday life. It doesn't have to be going across the world. Going to a different state and seeing something even can still be life-changing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I took my husband out of the country for the first time last year. Well, he had been to Mexico, but it was so interesting because, every time I travel, I'm like, this changes my life. Every single time, something does. And I asked him, I was like, did this change your life? And he was like, no, I'm enjoying myself. No. And I was like, what? What is wrong with So I think I can't expect them all to have these drastic life change. I drastically changed my life in these situations, but also he's he was 36, so it's a little bit different than a teenager, but
yeah,
I don't know. Not everybody's going to have a life-changing moment, and I do have to accept that. But
you're right. We can give them the opportunity though. We can throw it in front of them.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so you mentioned a lot of really good things in there, and I hope that this inspired people to want to do this. So one of the barriers was cost, and what I love what you said about, the kids that you're not expecting to be the ones that go because of finances are the ones that make it happen. Even when I was in high school, I sacked groceries to pay for that trip. I said, I'm going on this, and my parents, I think, they bought me some stuff and they helped, but I mostly paid for that trip on my own because I just I had to do it. So what are some ways that you can help kids with fundraising and getting money? Have you done any fundraising, or are you allowed to do that in your district?
Okay, so we're not allowed to do it at all through the school. And honestly, we haven't done much fundraising as a group. So what I usually do is the kids that maybe aren't working at a job or something like that, and they need ideas. We've done, some things where they do it individually and I give them ideas. I think that if you're going to I did do some fundraising at my previous job when I first started traveling with the kids, and going big as far as time, effort, and energy with trying to earn funds for, more than one person, it's better to do a big event and really, really make it like a happening than it is to do lots of small things. And the reason is that, it's hard work. And when you're working with a bigger group, it makes it a little bit easier, and the kids can use the social media and things like that. I've talked to a lot of other teachers that have traveled with students, and a lot of times they've just built a program where they go ahead and do like if you're going to Greece, then you do like a Greek night. And a lot of times the people that are going are knowing they're supporting these kids, but they're being entertained, as sort of like a date night. The other one is lock-ins, where as a babysitting. So where there is an overnight kind of thing, so that you go to it's usually at a church, and because they have the facilities, and then you have the adults and the students chaperone, somebody else's kids so they can have date night or whatever. So those are two that people have told me have really good results. I always offer to do fundraising, and I'm always at this new school, I'm pretty shocked that they would rather work on their own, but they make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're doing something small, like a little, bake sale or something, it's a lot of work for not a lot of return. So I like doing something big. Excellent. Okay, so let's see.
Oh, and one other thing.
Yes.
There's all kinds of different companies out there, and I've pretty much just traveled with one. And so, you have to look at what the costs are and what you're getting and what's included and things like that. But the company I use I really like because they have a payment plan. So it's not that you're having to pay a big chunk of money all at once, that they very easily take it out of your checking or savings account every month. And so it makes it something that you can budget. And then also this company has it, at least for the students, where they can crowdfund, that they can actually send a link to like their grandparents or their family member and say, hey, for graduation or for my birthday, instead of, sending me money, you can pay directly towards my trip. And the payments made to the company for that student's balance, it automatically reduces that amount and then recalculates the monthly payments.
That is really
they're not
cool.
overpaying. Yeah. And so the students, if they come into some cash, or they want to just every once in a while, they have it as an automatic payment, and then they just send in $500 every once in a while from their summer job or whatever. I like that it automatically lowers the monthly payments.
Well, and that is such a good lesson.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're learning about dealing with money, and they're learning about, credit and how that works. And lessons all around. To use EF tours, yeah?
Yes, EF for the students, and then Go Ahead is in the same company, and they do the adult tours. Well, I call them adult tours. Students can go, but they have to be with somebody who's an adult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used Go Ahead for my trip too, and I was very impressed with the whole experience.
Yeah, I love them. People try to convince me to go with other ones, and I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I had been looking into other ones, but I'd already scheduled this Go Ahead one. And once I went to Go Ahead, I was like, I'm going to stick with them.
Yeah, they've got it figured out for sure.
Yeah. So what's good about this, and, if I'm going to kind of educate for people who don't know, but these tour companies have a tour guide that's there with you for the entire trip. So that person's job is to make you happy. So what's wonderful about that, they greet you when you're at the hotel, they tell you where to go. You're always know what to do and where to go. So it was such a treat.
Yeah, they take care of all of that. And what I love is that usually they're multilingual. So I kind of feel like the stupid American, who knows English and a little bit of other language to find the bathroom and how to pay, and just enough to get in trouble, but they know the culture, and they have guides that they like to work with, and they know those little things that you might be interested in that don't make it in the guidebooks, or, are kind of off the radar. And then you're like, well, I heard about this place and I want to go here. And then they help you figure out how to get there on your free time, and how to take the metro, and what bus, or who to contact, or whatever. That they're so filled with knowledge, and they work their butts off. So I'm always just super impressed. And I feel like maybe I'm one of the easier ones. And yet I still ask a ton of questions.
Yeah. And they welcome it. Our tour guide, Matthew, was just like, any question we had, he was like, yes, that's why I'm here.
Right.
And what was great, like there was a girl on our trip that it was on her bucket list to go to the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam, but you can't go online and get tickets. They sell out immediately. I think they open the tickets 2 months before the date, and then they sell out and you can't buy them. But he taught her how to get there. So she got there early, and, she got to go to the Anne Frank house because he was there to help her, navigate that. So, she got to cross off that bucket list.
That's awesome.
Item. So it was awesome. But there's a lot of other companies. I know they all do very similar things. I think we both use EF because we went to a conference together, or we saw each other at a conference at the EF, one of the EF presentations. So at the beginning of it all. Okay. So what are the differences in like the tour experience between EF and Go Ahead?
Okay. So EF is geared towards students. So it's a little bit lower end in that they know it's a little bit cheaper. So like the hotels they're fine. It's not luxury travel, but what I love about this company is they find some of the most interesting accommodations that, sometimes depending on the city, that it's just a kind of a plain Jane standard hotel in the city. But sometimes in the smaller communities and stuff like that, like I was in Switzerland with some kids, and we were basically in like a tiny village looking over this amazing lake. And we called it the Hobbit Hotel because it had been there, I don't know how long, but I'm short and I could walk through the doors just fine, but that's it. Everybody else had to duck. And so it was just this delightful, weird place that was probably not super expensive because it was sort of off the beaten path. So the company does a really good job about finding accommodations and stuff like that. With the students, they keep them running. They keep them busy. And the idea is that they are wanting them to see a lot. They give them free time, but it's sort of constrained. So they have that sense of freedom to maybe see a little square or do a little bit of shopping, but not enough time to really get in trouble.
Yeah.
And, we are going from 7:30 in the morning, sometimes till 8 or 9 at night before we're back in the rooms. And by that time, the kids are like ready to be in their rooms and take their showers because they know the next day that we're going to be doing it. It cracks me up because whenever they put us on a bus, so a lot of times if they can, they transfer us by bus, like a nice charter bus. But you look and everybody's like desperate to stay awake to see the scenery. And every person on that bus is practically sleeping. And they know it. And so, depending on your tour director, they have their little chant or song to wake you up because they're getting close to the next thing. So EF, which is the student one, is geared towards the students. Adults can go, but you have to have more students than adults. They put multiple kids in a room. Pretty much every dinner is pre-planned. They take you to a place and, you get what you get, which sometimes is great. And sometimes, depending on, what we're used to eating, the kids may be less impressed. But I have it pretty much built into my travel plans that with the boys, we're probably going to have second dinner somewhere. And so I'm always scoping out around the hotel. Is there somewhere safe that we can, go out for a snack or something? So we make sure that that people disagree with me, but we often try to hit a McDonald's at least somewhere because the kids are fascinated.
Oh, yeah.
And then we always try to do like a grocery store so they can look at the snacks and how they're packaged. And we always giggle. So that's with the student tours. It's more stuff is paid for, more structured, faster paced, less free time. Mm-hmm. With the adult tours, it is nicer accommodations. They're basing it on 2 people in a room, 2 adults. The accommodations are pretty nice usually.
I was really surprised how nice they were.
Yeah, you get less meals. You get less planning done, so more free time. So oftentimes they'll take you to a new city and you tour around, and they have things that they show you and that are included. And then the next day you'll have a free day, or they'll have like excursions, almost like a cruise ship where you can, for an added fee, you can go do this, but then they plan everything for you and get you there. So I like to do sort of a mix with the Go Ahead adult tours. I'll look at what their excursions are, and then I'll let my travelers decide, like, if everybody's wanting to go somewhere, well, then I'm going to go with them. Or I'll talk to people, and sometimes some people want to go and some don't. And the good thing about that is that they always let you decide last minute that you want to go. If they have room, they can take you. And so you might not realize that you really were interested in this place because you didn't understand the context or whatever. So the Go Ahead is more relaxed, better food, I guess, overall, better quality food, nicer accommodation.
Amazing.
Yeah. But it's more expensive in the sense that with the EF student tours, they really try to almost make it as all-inclusive as they can so that the students can budget and make sure they're responsible for their lunch, their spending money, and tips. On the Go Ahead, on a 10-day trip, you might have 3 or 4 dinners paid for, usually breakfast every day, but then a lot of your free time, of course, you're paying for things on your own. But the adults really like that because they, depending on what kind of traveler there are, they might enjoy going and sitting and having a glass of wine and a nice meal and just people watching. Whereas maybe our students and the kids wouldn't be as interested. They want to go see stuff.
Yeah, I like the freedom that the Go Ahead gave us especially because, we had a smaller group and there were 8 or 9 in my group. And then we were in a bigger group of maybe 22. It was a pretty small overall. But it was a lot of we would kind of come together and some people would want to go do this and some people would go do that. And then we would switch and we would, I got to spend time with everybody and everybody got to do what they wanted. And I really liked that freedom that it gave us.
And this is the other reason I love it, because when you travel with a group, whether it's people you know and like, or your family or whatever, for whatever reason that you're doing it, they take away all those choices that create conflict because, everybody at some point we're all tired and grumpy and hungry and hot and whatever. And they're kind of like, well, this is where we're going to eat. And you don't have to have that conversation. Well, what are you hungry for? I don't know. I don't care. Well, I don't want to decide. Well, what are you hungry for? I don't care. And so it's just kind of like, well, decision's made and we didn't have to do it. This is where we're all going, guys. So it's that, with the Go Ahead, it's that good mix of structure and free time where it makes it pretty easy. I will admit that after traveling with adults last year, I did a tour this year and last year, I came back and as an adult that travels with groups, I work a lot harder when I have students because you're always on, it's work. And I know that there are other adults sometimes with me that may or may not be, have the title of chaperone. So it's nice that everybody kind of looks out, but it's not their job. It's mine. And so when I went on a trip to Italy last year and with Go Ahead for the first time, I was like, I am so spoiled. Like, this is amazing. Because the adults that were with me would need my help or they would have questions, but it was just so relaxing compared to traveling with the students. Maybe less exciting, but it feels a little bit spoiled. Like, it was just super nice. But at the same time, I was there and I was like, I kind of miss the kids. So it was strange. So I'm just going to keep doing both. Yeah,
that's really fun. I can see how you said the students are more excited about the little things because I'm that way too. Like, I'll walk into a place and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that. And I was with one of my best friends from elementary school came with me. And there was this time we were lost and we were at King's College in London. We didn't intend to be there, but that's where we were. And we were trying to figure out where we are. And I was like, Jeannie, look at that tree. And she's all just like, it's a tree. And I was like, but it's a cool tree, so I think the kids would have been like, yeah, that is an awesome tree. And so I can see how that would be fun to see new things through their eyes.
Also, the street art. I love looking at street art. Yeah. And the adults will just keep walking. And I'm like, wait, I need to stop and look at this. And the students are always like, whoa. So then they find it for me to look at. And so when I'm traveling with adults, we tend to just kind of keep on going. And I'm like, but. And with the kids, we all end up stopping. So that's pretty nice that they show me things that maybe I wasn't noticing because of their different perspectives. So I really like that.
I love it. That's awesome. So we didn't talk about at the beginning, like tell us everywhere you've been, like where have you gone? How many trips have you taken? How many tours have you done?
I think 8, maybe 9. I don't know. That's terrible. I should think about it. I've done a trip every year, either with students or adults. And my first one was in 2011, but I did 2 last year. So I just completed my 9th.
Wow.
I did a student tour to Ireland, England, and Wales last summer, and then turned around like 2 weeks later and went to Italy with adults. The adult thing happened because I have people that like, I want to go travel with you, but I just don't want to go with the students. And I'm like, okay, I get that. And so it was kind of funny because I'd heard about Go Ahead, forever. And it was this group of adults that was like, let's do this. And I was like, are you sure? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, all right. And so now I have people like, where are we going next? And I'm like, I don't know. Where do you want to go? Because I'm pretty open. I've pretty much just done with groups Europe. That's where people want to go. That's where the excitement seems to lie. And I've traveled more on my own elsewhere, but as far as the trips go, so pretty much all your European countries, the Western Europe, I should say. I haven't really done anything in Eastern Europe with a group. So I don't know.
Do you have a favorite place that you've been?
Oh my gosh, everywhere? It's for different reasons, right?
Yeah.
I have aha moments. So I joke right now, and it might be changing. I don't know. Up until 3 weeks ago, I would tell you, well, I'm going to have a summer home in Ireland, and I'm going to have a winter home in Barcelona. And so when I grow up and hit the jackpot, that's going to be my life. And then every time I have like the bucket list, even with the students, I have the bucket list, and I think, oh, okay, I can cross that off my list, but I'm pretty sure there's not a place where I'm like, okay, honestly, I've seen Paris too much. That sounds like such a entitled, spoiled thing to say. So everybody wants to go to Paris, and I'm like, ugh. And then of course I get to Paris and I'm like, oh, I love Paris. This is great. Oh, look. And so, so like I could give up London and Paris from my travel itineraries. And yet there's always new stuff to discover when you get there, and I'm fine.
I feel the same way about Paris. It's so funny because I went when I was in high school, and it was my favorite place. And then I did a study abroad in Italy in college, and I did a week in Paris before I went to Italy, just tacked it on. I didn't like it. I was overwhelmed by it, and I was by myself, and I was awkward and weird. But and then I went back this time, and I loved it again. So I'm like, I think it's just going to be different every time I go there. And I think I just need to open myself up to that. And what's Paris going to say this time?
Yeah.
I love the food. This time I was just like, I'm going to drink wine and eat food the whole time. And I would always baguette. I'd take a purse full of baguettes from the breakfast. I would just eat bread all day. It was perfect.
So perfect. That's funny. Yeah. So every time I travel, basically it goes back on the list of I need to go back further. I was really impressed with southern France. I'd like to go back there, and they were much kinder than they were in Paris. Yeah, I like it all. Really, honestly, I could spend less time in big cities. Once for me, I get overwhelmed with maybe the amount of people and the amount of tourists and the traffic, and it's super exciting. But after about 2 days, I'm like, okay, we got to go somewhere else.
I felt that too, because this last trip was London, Paris, and Amsterdam. And in the middle of Paris was the second stop. And in the middle of Paris, I was just like, I'm just overwhelmed. And then we went to the Monet's Gardens in Giverny, and this tiny little place. And I was like, this is exactly what I needed. I needed to be outside of the city. It was perfect.
Yes. Wow. Jealous. I haven't done that yet.
It was worth it. Definitely worth the excursion. It was really cool.
Okay.
I'm not a big Monet fan either. I respect Impressionism, but I'm not a huge fan of it, but It was really wonderful.
That's that whole context thing.
Right.
Exactly. So now you have further appreciation for his work. Definitely. Is that true?
Yes.
Yay. See, there you go.
He curated his work in gardening before he composed it through a garden, and then he painted it. So there was multiple layers of composition happening. All of those paintings, he created the composition before he ever even painted anything. It was crazy to see.
I don't think I knew that.
He was apparently a rich, mean guy. Everyone hated him, but he was super rich, and all the townspeople hated him. And he built a hotel just so his friends could come visit in town. I mean, it was really, I learned a lot. So yeah, it was a great trip. Awesome. Okay. So While you're on these trips with students, do you have any tips other than second dinner, which I think is an excellent tip because that is always needed because those dinners are too small? What are some other tips that you found helpful when working with students, like things that you might need to bring or special things that you do to prepare them or anything like that?
Yeah. So the way that I do it is oftentimes that period of, I guess it's called recruitment, might last 2 years before. And so reassuring the people that, yes, you're signed up and I promise we'll talk more. So, an information session, you're giving the big picture and you're trying to excite people and, letting them know that they don't have to make a decision right now. And I also let them know like, hey, I'm not going to bother you. I'm here anytime you have a question, but I'm not that person. Okay. Yeah. So maybe have bigger groups if I was, but I'm not. And then just kind of setting the expectation that, look, really, unless you need me, we're really not going to start having more regular meetings until about 6 or 7 months beforehand. So I travel in the summer. I have found that you're going to get more people to go in the summer than over your spring break. Even though the weather is nicer over spring break and it's a little bit more cost effective over spring break, I've always struggled finding kids to go over spring break. It's because they have soccer and basketball and all the sports and etc. But so usually I'm traveling in summer. I like traveling in June better. July is a big holiday in Europe. There's a lot of people July and August that travel to Europe. So June kind of works a little bit better for my kids and for me. And so in December, so if we're going in June, usually I have a meeting at the end of January is the first, here's the big travel meeting. Have you gotten your passport? How are you doing on payments? Do we need to do fundraisers? Are you excited? All that kind of stuff. And just kind of reassuring the parents, looking at what we're going to be doing, stuff like that, going over, what the power needs are, like having to have an adapter versus a converter while we travel. We talk about being flexible. And what does that mean? Sort of setting the expectation. And we talk about safety a whole lot because a lot of our kids are pretty oblivious. We grow up in a fairly safe place. And so we talk about situational awareness and what that means and looking out for each other and a lot about pickpockets and, and so there's different meetings. And so sometimes a meeting might be really, if it's a vastly different culture, what to do, what not to do, what kind of problems they have. So we just kind of keep going and making sure that everything's okay. With one last meeting, usually a couple weeks before, I collect tip money in cash, or they can pay me. So on these trips, you do pay tips. So it's not included in the package because it depends on what you're doing. So the tour director deserves every penny that they should get, and more. Mm-hmm. I think only one trip I don't remember the person's name because they didn't impress me. Everything else, I've actually made friends with them. So if we have a local guide that leads us around the city for 2 hours and gives us an in-depth thing, there's a tip to that person. It makes no sense for every student to try to hand this guy €1 for his services. So I collect all of that ahead of time, and that way I know we're also actually tipping these people. So, and I collect a color copy passport from everybody.
Oh, that's good.
And I tell them to leave a color copy passport at home. Luckily, and I'm knocking on wood, I've never had a student lose a passport or have stuff stolen. But in our larger groups, because they put us together, it happens fairly regularly. So a lot of the embassies in the big cities will work with you much better if you have a color copy of your passport. So I tell them to keep one in their luggage, leave one at home, and give one to me. Okay. So I walk around every day with a spreadsheet of everybody's passport info and a color copy. And then I have a copy of the color copies in my luggage. And I don't know if I'm over prepping, but you know what? It's been working so far. So it's just sort of a series of meetings. It depends on your group. Some of them want to meet quite a lot. And some of them, they have a different feel every time about how much, not hand holding, but how much extra support they want ahead of time. And then, just making sure that you're available and that they can ask you whatever. On the day of the airport, you need to set your meeting time at least 3 hours, but probably 3.5. Before you go. You're going to get the airline information as the group leader and the hotel sort of stuff first. And I go ahead and I try to do all my research and pull everything together on that. Okay, so then in these meetings, there is a form that sometimes EF wants and sometimes they don't. And it's basically like a medical form that I give them, like a general, like, you don't always know the students that are going with you. And so it's like, have you ever flown on a plane? Those are good things to know. Do you have any phobias? You have people that are scared of heights, and it's kind of nice to know that before you go. I can't ride in an elevator. Okay, well, we got to figure this out, about their medicines, talking about prescription medicines and things like that. What else? Oh, and then I always make an emergency contact list that compiles all the travelers' names, who their emergency contact is, the email and the phone number of that emergency contact. I collect their emails of the traveler and their cell phone numbers, and I find out if they're going to be connected while they travel. Mm-hmm. And basically, I just give this information to anybody who's related to the trip that wants it. And it's come in handy. Unfortunately, we have been traveling when maybe things in the world, there was a terrorist attack or something, and the people in the U.S. felt better that they could reach out to other people on the trip. And it also let them know who was traveling. Yeah. Sometimes I'll have people join that are an adult or something, and they don't come to all those meetings, so they don't get to meet all the travelers beforehand, or the kids don't know who's who. And so it's really nice to almost have this little list of who the people are. And I give a copy of that to all the kids, and it also has EF's emergency phone number and how to dial from the US and how to dial from Europe. So I have all that together. And luckily I've done this for long enough that it's just pretty much easy for me to update. And then I use that quite often because the tour director, their job is to make sure everybody's on the bus, but I'm going to make sure that all my group is on my bus. And so, it allows me to kind of get organized, I guess. And I just think that having all that information is really important for everybody.
Yeah. Do you have a template for that?
I have a spreadsheet that I just kind of update. And it used to be every time we came back to the US, everybody had to fill out like a declaration, a customs form. And it actually depends on what airport you fly back into. And so I will actually sit there on the plane and fill out all the information that I can for them, minus their signature and what they actually bought, because like they get confused with like the European date format and stuff like that. Yeah. Sometimes if it's a smaller group, I'll teach them, but a lot of times they're all passed out on the plane. And I'm like, I do not want you to get your passport out because I don't want you to lose it right now, So it's just so much like little educational things that we do.
Really smart, especially because they give you those like 15 minutes before you land. They don't give you those.
Exactly. Well, and so sometimes now I know I will talk to the flight attendant like, hey, can I have 15 of those forms, please? And they look at me like, you only need one per family. And I'm like, yeah. We're good. I'm a teacher with the group. Oh, sure. Here you go.
Yeah, that's really smart.
And bring lots of pens. That's the other, the kids, like, a pen? Why would I need a pen? Miss, can I borrow your pen? Yeah, there's a lot of that.
I didn't have a pen most of the time on my trip, and I was borrowing Jeannie's pen almost every time, like when we had to sign receipts and we had,
Yeah, it's put one in your backpack, put one in your luggage, put it in your purse, because you're going to need it eventually. And a Sharpie. I always travel with a Sharpie.
Okay, good tips. Any other things that you usually bring? I always bring a bunch of Ziploc bags.
Yes, I go ahead and I show up at the airport with the quart size thing of bags. And because I'm like, look, you got to talk about this. I always bring a water bottle because you can, just drink it and then fill it up and fill it up and fill it up. I used to actually carry a travel coffee mug, but I've gotten over that. What else? My groups usually kind of laugh at me because it's like, oh, you need that? Oh, wait, I have it in my bag somewhere. And then honestly, probably the thing I get made fun of the most is that I always travel with a headlamp. And it's nice because it has come in handy. Like more than once, like literally people are like, are you serious? You have a headlamp? And I'm like, look, if my phone is dead or I can't find my phone or my phone is stolen, I don't have a flashlight anymore. So yes, I have a headlamp. And then when it actually is useful, I'm like, ha ha. And everybody just kind of cracks up. I mean, even just for like taking pictures, we have extra light,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's the dorky part.
That's awesome. Okay. These are amazing tips. Like, I'm so grateful that you're here to tell us all of this because I wouldn't have thought of any of that really. So that's fantastic. Okay. I think we covered like all the good bases. Can you think of anything else that we might have missed about traveling with groups?
Just do it. So this is the story I tell, is basically I remember going to one of the art conferences and sitting in a room and hearing somebody speak about basically what we've been talking about. And I had never traveled to Europe at this point, had not even done it. And I remember thinking, I'm just going to do it. Surely I can do this. I can do this. And then, of course, that first trip was like, there are a lot of moments like, oh, but it was so amazing. And, I was hooked after that because it's exciting and you learn so much and you know that maybe half of the kids are having aha moments that are going to change their life, but that's still good enough.
That's a lot.
The adults, I think it changes lives. And, I'm kind of a hippie peace person. And I think that going to other places, you really realize that humans are pretty much the same with what we want and what we need. And yes, we may express it differently or have different words or, different cultures, but really, it all comes down to that same thing. And I think that understanding in that, maybe willingness to hear stories from other people from other places and seeing even like the big issues that they're facing as a country, I just think that it's not causing anyone any harm. And I think maybe it's changing things. We don't necessarily know how, but I pretty much believe that even if these kids say, no, it really didn't matter, or your husband, no, it didn't really change me, it did. And it may not be apparent until 15 years when they go, oh,
yeah.
And so I think that's kind of a big deal. I think as an educator, especially as an art educator, we're so wired to get kids to consider possibilities and get kids to take risks and to yes, plan for this, but you need to be flexible because your idea may not work out. Are you just going to give up? Or are you going to try a different way? Or are you going to research more? Or, all those things that we want our kids to be. Travel pretty much teaches that. So I think we should all be trying. Wherever you are, just do it.
Yeah. And we want to encourage our students to take risks and to think outside of the box and to do these things. So we need to do it ourselves too. So if it scares you and you want to do it, then
I love group travel for that. So I travel by myself, but group travel is fun. Even if you're an introvert, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think I would. We're a little bit worried because I am an introvert and I'm kind of like to control my own path in life too. And so I was a little bit worried that I would feel constrained by the group and overwhelmed by the group, but I was not at all. I had moments to myself. I had freedom, but I didn't have to stress about where I had to be and how to get my bag there. And how was I, all of the stressful parts of travel were taken care of and I just got to enjoy it.
Yes.
And that's what I love.
So true.
So it's a great entry into travel, I think, too, is if you're a little bit scared, is to go with the group. So, and you can go with me next summer to Budapest, Vienna, and Prague in July of 2019. I'm so excited.
Hey, did you know Budapest is actually two separate towns?
I just learned that.
I just learned that too. It's Buda and Pest. I was like, what?
Yeah, I just learned that a month ago when I was scheduling. I was like, why did I not know this?
Right. That's so funny.
So, but now I'm going to go to Buda and Pest. So I'm excited. And
that's
you can
awesome.
too.
I may add on. I don't know. I don't have any travel plans for next summer.
Wow.
It's painful.
I'm excited. Okay. Well, thank you so very much for joining me today. And I have one more question that I ask all of the podcast guests at the end of the episode. And that is, what artwork changed your life?
Oh, wow. My brain just went on overload.
A lot of us have lots of artworks that changed our lives.
I'm like, what artwork changed my life? And I'm like, and suddenly my whole life stretched out before me. I'm not going to say it was life-changing, but had a big impact on me, and thinking of context and history and all of these little moments that keep playing out is actually The Garden of Earthly Delights by Bosch, or however you say it. I got to see it when I went to Madrid 5 or 6 years ago. And it was that whole thing of seeing something in person that you kind of knew about and maybe had seen in a book, and then really looking at it. And then I bought a puzzle. I like puzzles, of one of the panels. And so then I really, really got to know it by putting together a puzzle, which sounds kind of weird. It's almost my favorite thing to do now when I am really interested in a work of art. But that right there made me research so many other things. Like I had so many things I was curious about, and I knew I kind of liked it. I remember seeing it in college and learning about it and being like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then like really being there in person and seeing it. And then all these little things have kind of rippled out in my life since then, going back to that. So I guess it was life-changing in that I really got a better sense of history and how it all tied together. And then still just really realizing how remarkable he was and that whole time period. And the fact that this is considered like religious art is just kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's such a weird standout artwork of all, like, it doesn't fit, and it's just so interesting. I love it.
So fascinating. And then you have to think about people not really seeing color and having, you know, their access to imagery, which we are overstimulated now. And then you think of when he lived, and like these were people that had maybe never really even really seen paintings, or if they did, it was only in the church. And then all of a sudden they're seeing this.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy to think about.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And then you look at it and it's almost like it's science fiction, because some of the things that he created looks like stuff that we think about on other worlds. I don't know. It's just got so many layers. It's fascinating. Every time I look at it again, I'm like, oh, there's another one.
It's a good one. Yeah. I got to see it, but it was very quick because we had a 24-hour layover in Madrid. And I went to see Guernica first because I needed to see that. And then I was totally wrecked from Guernica that I couldn't look at any art. So we just sort of wandered around. And then I was like, well, I have to go to the Prado. But my husband was so jet lagged. He was like asleep on the bench outside of the Prado. And I like ran through and I was like, oh yeah, I got to see Bosch. I got to see some Goya. And I was, and I have a selfie of myself with it, but I didn't really get to look at it. I need to go back.
I think that maybe the puzzle almost had more, like it was doing the puzzle. It sounds stupid, but
no, it's also because you're spending quality time with the work.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. I think there's a lot of tips, and hopefully we've inspired some teachers to get out there and do this.
Just for themselves first, if they need to go. One thing with EF, there's probably somebody in their school district or wherever that they could just join a trip if they wanted to with the students, just to almost be like that observer without having to have chaperone duties if they are worried about how to do it with kids. And then, of course, Go Ahead is just pure vacation.
Yeah.
So either one, just do it.
Do it. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and give us an honest rating on iTunes. This will help other teachers find us and hear these amazing stories. Do you want even more art inspiration? Sign up for Art Class Curator's once a week email newsletter, Your Weekly Art Break. Teacher Sarah Warnock says, I truly do take a break from my busy week to check all your links and feel inspired. Everything you share is relevant, meaningful, and also super helpful. You definitely help me become a better art teacher, and I look forward to your emails each week. You can sign up at artclasscurator.com/artbreak. And as a free gift for subscribing, you'll get 6 free art interpretation worksheets to use in your classroom. Be sure to tune in next week for more inspiring art interviews. Thanks to Kristen for sharing her tips and experiences with us. If you've considered leading a student trip, I hope her insights have given you the motivation you need to go for it. And if you're ready to go on an adventure of your own, I'd love for you to join my trip next summer. I'm leading a group to Budapest, Prague, and Vienna. You can get information about the trip in today's show notes at artclasscurator.com/17. Next week, I'll be going solo to reflect on the power and importance of art in times of tragedy. I'll see you then.